My name is Ernie Shea. I am the president of Solutions from the Land, which is a US-based farmer-led not-for-profit that's working with partners across the world to advance land-based solutions to global challenges. And I'll be serving as your moderator today. We've been a longtime partner with Fertilizer Canada and the 4R Solution Project, helping to demonstrate how there is no one single solution to sustainable development goal attainment, particularly when it comes to food security and climate change, and that we need to be utilizing all tools in the toolbox: innovation, technology, precision agriculture, science-based solutions. And today, we're going to have an opportunity to take a close look at some of the experiences of the 4R Solution initiative as it's being deployed in Ethiopia, as well as Ghana. So the 4R Solution Project is a Global Affairs Canada funded project. It's being implemented in partnership with Fertilizer Canada, CDF Canada, the African Plant Institute, and we're really trying to show how sustainable farming practices can improve resilience, increase net income, improve food security, reduce poverty. And we're focusing especially on smallholder farmers and women. So it's been a very successful, early evolving program that we think has an opportunity for replication. Today, we're very fortunate to have this webinar co-hosted by IFAD. And IFAD is a multi-stakeholder funded, the Rural Financial Intermediation Program that they fund is a multi-stakeholder project in Ethiopia that is also working to improve livelihoods, reduce vulnerability and poverty through the increased incomes that come about with these practices. And we're very pleased and happy that they could join today as a co-host. So our objective simply over the next 90 minutes is to share some of these success stories and talk about how the financial measures that are being used are actually working to improve livelihoods. In terms of the couple of housekeeping items, our run of show is going to run about 90 minutes. And if you have to drop off, it will be recorded. So you'll have an opportunity to view it later or go back again. We have asked everyone to be thinking about questions as you go along here and to insert them into the chat function in Zoom. And when we get to the point in the program where we're going to have question and answers, which will be after we have the presentations, Clyde and I will be teaming up and facilitating responses to your questions. So thank you for in advance for thinking of those. So I think that is all of our housekeeping items for today. And to keep us right on time and moving along, I'm going to now turn the floor over to Nikita Erickson-Hamel, the Deputy Director for Global Affairs Canada, who's going to give a welcome message. So Nikita, over to you. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and to provide some introductory remarks. My name is Nikita Erickson-Hamel. I'm Deputy Director in the Agriculture and Food Systems Division at Global Affairs Canada. And I've had the benefit of following this the 4R project for many years, and we've seen such great positive progress and evolution. I'd like to start with some context about Global Affairs Canada and our priorities. So the Feminist International Assistance Policy remains the central focus of the Government of Canada's international assistance abroad. But efforts to better engage and leverage private sector expertise and innovations has been an important focus of our work, and it continues to be an important priority in our new climate finance program. So today's event is very timely and very relevant to Canada's efforts to combat climate change. Canada has just launched the next phase of its international climate change program. Now, this program commits an additional $5.3 billion in funding over the next 5 years. And this represents a doubling of our previous 5-year commitment. Now, the new program will provide funding to 4 thematic areas: clean energy and coal phase out, climate governance, nature-based solutions and biodiversity, and climate smart agriculture. And these latter two areas on climate smart agriculture and agriculture nature-based solutions are of particular relevance to the work, the 4R work. Now, this new phase of funding will increase the proportion of grant funding to about 40%, recognizing that, that there needs to be more done to support vulnerable communities to adapt and build resilience to the major impacts of climate change. Of course, gender equality continues to be a major focus of all of Canada's international development assistance. And so there will be a target of 80% of funding that will target gender equality considerations, largely to support women's leadership and decision-making in climate action. Now, the 4R solution definitely lends itself to climate smart agriculture through its focus on soil management of farmers. And it leverages these agriculture nature-based solutions of farmers. Now, partnering with the private sector continues to be a priority for Canada, either as a co-development of solutions or to leverage the strengths, the expertise, and innovations of Canadian private sector for the benefit of developing countries. And I recall early engagement in 2013, 2014, with when I first met Clyde and company, and I think it was previously called the Canadian Fertilizer Institute. And this led to a better understanding of the international footprint of many of Canada's fertilizer industry partners, and an appreciation of their intentions and desire to work and support poor farmers in developing countries. So recognizing this potential and the opportunity for collaboration, we were very pleased to support this partnership between the Canadian Development Foundation and Fertilizer Canada that emerged around 6 years ago. And in particular, we've really been impressed at the evolution of this partnership and the expanding scope, the geographic scope within Ghana, Senegal, and today learning about Ethiopia. Now, in the context of Africa and in particular in Ethiopia, we know there can be no agricultural growth without sustainable management of plant nutrients, right? That is key. No agricultural growth without sustainable management of plant nutrients. Africa needs to increase agricultural productivity, and the 4R tool provides a means for farmers to really maximize the use of their fertilizer. And it provides this confidence that the precious funds these poor farmers have spent on inputs will be used to their full extent to increase yields and minimize losses. So this is really a partnership that we're proud of. And we've been really encouraged by the strong advocacy and learning agenda that is emerging, in particular today with IFAD. And IFAD's one of Canada's strongest climate finance partners. Canada provided $340 million in climate finance loans to IFAD in the past 2 years. So we're very pleased to see this opportunity for joint learning and hopefully for better integration of sustainable management of plant nutrients in IFAD's work as well. So I'll be listening intently today to hear about the progress and latest developments. As we know, the challenges in many of these countries remain. Things are becoming more difficult. Poverty of farmers makes it difficult to buy inputs and improve their land. Climate change continues to make farming unpredictable. Global supply chains have been disrupted lately for a number of reasons, and it's making fertilizer more expensive. Especially now with the recent conflict, we anticipate global fertilizer prices to increase, and this will make it even more difficult for countries in Africa to buy on global markets. Hence, the training and innovations of this project remain ever more relevant, and we're confident that it is really putting forward the most important, best fit solution for farmers in Africa. So I think I'll stop there. Thanks again for this opportunity. I'll be listening in closely and wish the project plenty of success in its final years. Thank you. Over to you, Ernie.
Okay, Nikita, thank you very much, especially for that closing context. Obviously, we're in a much different place today with the conflict in Ukraine, which is having a ripple effect across the globe. And it's important for us to realize that we need to be adapting and pivoting and adjusting, but still continuing to advance our overall approach to farming. Utilizing fertilizer obviously is a key input and an essential component of a successful, sustainable production system. So we have a lot of work to do. Okay, we're now ready to dive into the actual programming for the webinar, and we're going to kick off with Clyde Graham, the Executive Vice President of Fertilizer Canada, who's going to walk us through an overview of the 4R Solution Initiative. So Clyde, welcome, and over to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Ernie, and thank you, Nikita, for your kind words. Frankly, this project, the 4R Solution Project, has been a work of joy for me. I've thoroughly enjoyed the close to 3 years now that we've been engaged in Africa. It's very different than any of the work that I've ever done, but it's been tremendously gratifying to see the success of the project, which really relied heavily on our partners, including the Cooperative Development Foundation, the African Plant Nutrition Institute, which provides us with the scientific expertise based in Africa, and of course support from Global Affairs Canada, the fertilizer companies that have contributed to the project, and others. And I'll talk more about that later. If I could get the next slide, please. So what is the 4R Solution Project? Our target is to improve the socioeconomic well-being and resilience of smallholder farmers, particularly in our 3 target countries, Ghana, Ethiopia, and Senegal. Senegal is our smallest project, but we are starting work in Senegal, and we will have, I think, 2.5 strong years in working with the people of Senegal. Who we're going to impact is 80,000 smallholder farmers. 50% are women in all 3 countries. And then you can see the budget is just about $17 million. Private sector contribution is $2 million of that figure. It seems like a lot of money, but when you spread it over such large landscapes and over so many people, it is important that we get the best return on our investment in the projects that we're working on. And so some of our the project priorities are improved production of crops, and better market access for the cooperatives that we're working with, access to finance, improved governance, working on environmental issues such as not just soil fertility, but soil degradation and reducing erosion, bringing soils that have been depleted or overworked for too many years back and rehabilitating them. Addressing some of the key aspects of climate change, which Nikita emphasized quite correctly, are very important for not just for Africa, but for the planet. Water issues, and obviously we can't just work on fertilizer issues. There are many aspects to growing a healthy crop, including controlling diseases and pests, and getting the right kinds of seeds and those kinds of issues. So a lot of it is about the development of information and extending that information to farmers and to the science-based agronomists, provide them with advice so that they can have the best outcomes. And that's one of our nitrogen fact sheets there that provides some details for growers about how to use nitrogen, one of the 3 major crop nutrients. If we could go to the next one. Okay, and so here's just a current status report on the project. In Ghana, the regions that we're working with, the crops there are primarily maize, rice, groundnuts, or in North America we refer to them as peanuts, soybeans, and then going to Senegal, we're working with, again, maize or corn in North America, rice and groundnuts. And then in Ethiopia, crops like wheat, chickpeas and lentils. And of course, teff is a incredibly interesting crop that's used to make the bread in Ethiopia. And I think one of the interesting aspects of that is that there hasn't been a lot of research on teff because it is I think, focused on Ethiopia and not widely cultivated in other parts of the world. So we go to the next slide, please. So here's some of the early results in Ghana and Ethiopia, where we've been active for just under 3 years now. We've done 100 4R demonstration sites. These are done in local communities where growers can see the benefits of proper fertilizer use and the 4Rs. And then also nutrition omission trials have been established to demonstrate the comparison between working in the 4Rs and doing previous practices. 4,000 farmers and 300 community agriculture extension agents have been trained on the 4R principles, along with other agronomic practices. There have been 12 regional farmers cooperatives that have been formed. Farmers have received improved seed and fertilizers, as well as farming equipment, and even things like bicycles and other tools to help improve their livelihoods. And there are 254 village savings and loans associations have been formed, with a total saving of $104,000 Canadian. And then I think one of the more interesting projects for us has been the development of 2 national advisory committees to encourage stakeholders, from government officials to farmers groups, local agribusinesses, and other key stakeholders to try and come up with recommendations and new policy directions that will support the objectives of the 4Rs. Next slide, please. And then these are the kind of policy areas that the national advisory committees are working on, improving awareness, finding the right kind of fertilizer, et cetera, et cetera. I won't go through all these, but I think the reports coming out of Ghana and Ethiopia are going to be very influential within the African Union. And of course, that will be followed by further discussion and recommendations out of Senegal. So, I think I think sometimes we assume that everyone knows what the 4Rs are. It's a simple concept that's, I think, elegant in providing solutions for farmers. It's at the heart of it is looking at the 4 key areas for making good decisions about fertilizer use. So using the right source of fertilizer, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and other nutrients, applying it at just the right rate so that you're only using as much fertilizer as is required by the plant in any growing season, applying the fertilizer at the right time so it's there when the plant needs it the most, and also applying the fertilizer in the right place where it's most available to the crop to provide the best results. Next slide, please. And then just here are some of the yield increases we've seen in our work in Ethiopia and Ghana. These plots are under the supervision of the African Plant Nutrition Institute based out of Morocco. And you can see that some of the yield increases are very dramatic. So where does this leave us? As a majority of smallholder farmers in Ethiopia and Ghana rely on agriculture as both a source of food and income through the sales of their crops, increased yields following the banded nutrient application program based on the 4Rs can substantially improve food security, nutrition, and income status of rural households, which will contribute positively to improving the socioeconomic well-being and resilience of farmers as the focal point in the focal point project areas, in line with the core objectives of the project. So, as I said at the very beginning, this has been very much a team effort We have partners on the ground in Africa who have been really doing the hard work of delivering the project. And my admiration for the people on the ground is tremendous as they have worked through the global pandemic, and there have been issues in Ethiopia related to civil unrest, and now the rising cost of crop inputs. But through it all, the project has just moved forward. We've moved from in-person meetings in some cases to webinars, and we've shifted scientific events to the internet, and throughout it all, the project has just moved along. Thanks very much, Nikita, for the funding the government of Canada has provided, which is outstanding. But also, I think it is important that Africa is seeking more engagement from the private sector in the development of the continent, particularly sub-Saharan Africa. And you can see the logos of the companies from Canada that have not only provided moral support to that, but have also provided funding for the project. So I think that's my last slide. So thanks very much.
Okay, Clyde, thank you very much for that overview. I'm sure there are a number of questions that are going to be coming back to you after you set the stage for this, once we get to the Q&A session of the webinar today. Okay, now we're going to take a brief pause and show a trailer from a video that was produced on the 4R Solutions program in Africa. And I'm not sure you folks have had an opportunity to take a look at this 12-minute video, but we're going to give you the trailer right now. So it'll give you a taste of what you'll see when you tune into the full video.
We, the farmers in Jamba here, were wondering why we are not getting high and quality yield. And then this project came. Because formerly we were farming anyhow without any principles. So 4R project came and then start with some demo farms to train us how to farm and get quality and more yield. So they make demo farms. They say the right way to get your fertilizer, and even the right way to start your farming, even the right land which you are to farm, and then the right source to get your fertilizer, right rates, and the right time and the right place. So when we started, we learned that from the field, the demo fields. And this year, if I apply it to my farm, I think I will get more and quality yield.
Before I learned about 4R, I didn't know there were specific herbicides for specific weeds and specific fertilizers for specific crops. But now, 4R has taught us to get the right source of fertilizer, the right time, the right rate, and the right place to apply the fertilizer. This year, I'll take my time to do the right thing. I will consult with the agriculture extension agents to support me so I can get better yields, sell it, and make enough money to take care of my children.
My hope and expectation in these 4R principles is I'm expecting that my life to change, because if I apply the right principles, I will get more yield and sell. And if I sell, I'll have money to help my family.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that brief clip about the video. And every time I see it, I'm so heartened to hear farmers talking about how this program is changing their lives and helping to improve income. And there's nothing like hearing it from the target audience, the farmers that are actually benefiting these practices. And that's really how this is going to take root and really spread like wildfire across Africa. Okay, we are now going to turn to Jane Guolo, who is the manager of Programs at CDF Canada. Jane has been working to support the implementation of projects across Africa and Asia to build resilience and improve lives of smallholder producers. And Jane is going to offer her insight on some of her experiences and observations. So Jane, welcome.
Thank you very much, Annie, for that introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on your location. I'm excited to be here today because this is one of the very passionate topics that I'm really passionate about. Having come from a historically known community where women and girls have always been had always been left at home to take care of household chores, while boys are given the priority to get an education. So I have an easy task of talking about the many gender interventions within the project, and with a specific focus on the rural commercial women groups within the 4R project. Next slide. Next slide. As you already heard from our main partner, Fertilizer Canada, through CLIDE, the Global Affairs Funded Project 4R Nutrient Stewardship Project is meant to improve socioeconomic well-being of over 80,000 poor and vulnerable smallholder farmers within Ethiopia, Ghana, and Senegal. And in line with addressing the project's gender component, that is increased capacity of women smallholder farmers to participate as extension agents and leaders in cooperatives and communities, what we are calling the rural commercial women groups have been established to facilitate women-centered empowerment activities within the project. Next slide. And to give a brief overview of the structure of the rural commercial women groups, these are groups that are self-made, self-selected individuals from communities that we work with, who are directly engaged on commercial activities and provide services along the agricultural value chain. The structure serves as an avenue for delivering financial and non-financial services to women, as well as a platform for addressing gender-related issues in favor of women. And the groups are drawn from a membership between 25 to 35 women. And in each group, we would usually have a 5-member leadership structure. The membership to the group is open to all cooperatives and non-cooperative women, but they must be residents within the project communities where we operate. And there are membership criteria that qualifies interested women to be part of the structure. For example, those that are already engaged and interested in commercial or business activities, and they must be of legal age above 18 years, must be residents in the community, and they must be willing to join the group. It's not by coercion. And they must be committed to the objectives, values, and principles of the group. They must be willing to participate in weekly meetings and trainings, because those are very essentials. They learn a lot from those platforms. And they must have good credit history, not indebted to any financial institutions, and they must be person of integrity and credibility. So there's a rigorous process that goes goes on behind the scenes to make sure that we are recruiting that women we can be able to work with to make a bigger impact. Next slide, please. So the key objectives of the formation of these groups is mainly to enhance women economic empowerment through increased access to productive resources, and to increase capacity of women in leadership and enterprise development, and also to provide a platform for championing or facilitating gender-related issues to empower the participants. Next slide. Great. So the main benefits of the rural commercial women groups model to the 4R project include, but are not limited to, a few that I'll mention here. The groups are efficient structure that provides women the opportunity to meet valuable contacts and expand their knowledge in diverse ways and gain new ideas to help increase their potential. And these groups provide available safe spaces for gender equality issues to be discussed freely and without judgment or prejudice. They serve as a mentorship platform for women to be inspired and meet other people with similar backgrounds and interests so that they can encourage one another by sharing experiences and support each other in finding solutions to issues facing them. And it also offers personal growth for the women, not only in business ventures, but also to gain skills on how to network, build confidence, and acquire diverse perspectives and impactfully shape their career paths. Next slide. And in the last 3 years of the project, so far, we have engaged in key activities focused on mainly training for the rural commercial women groups within our countries of operation. From the objectives that you have just seen in the earlier slide, these groups, is a platform, is not only for business focus, but it's also a channel through which women capacities are built for other development within the society. So the projects have created linkages between the groups and value chain actors in provision of inputs, dealers, technologies, credits, and information. And the projects have trained the groups on leadership, assertiveness, and confidence for the women to be able to show up and participate in leadership positions at all levels of influence within their communities. The projects have also trained the groups on financial literacy and business skills, leading to improved and sustained businesses that have resulted in increased family incomes. And they have organized women dialogue sessions to mobilize and support women, and also organize community engagement meetings on livelihood empowerment activities that have a great impact so far. Next slide, please. The achievements so far include, but not limited to, a few that I will mention here because of time. In Ethiopia, the project has established 16 rural commercial women groups representing over 85 women members. And in Ghana, we have over 130 groups so far with a total membership over 7,000. And in Senegal, where we just started working in September last year, we have 50 groups so far. In Ethiopia, the project has trained 84 of these groups in leadership, decision-making, and assertive skills. And in Ghana, we have over 200 groups that have already been trained as well. In Ethiopia, 56 group members have been linked to savings and credit cooperatives organizations, and they already received a loan fund amounting to around 125,000 Canadian dollars through the project, where we have a duly competitively selected a credit union to manage the loan, and usually in the form of provision of agricultural inputs like fertilizers and improved seeds. And in Ghana, 260 group members have so far received basic business skills and financial literacy training to improve their businesses. As a result, they have improved their cash management and expanded their businesses. As you have seen from the earlier clip, a lady there witnessing how much the project has made an impact in improving their businesses as well. The project in Ghana has already formed a substructure called a Women Sales Agent with 35 women to be a conduit to the women farmers to access productive resources and services. Next slide. And in continuation through the leadership trainings, the project has formed the 4R Women Aspirant Structure to enhance women representation and participation in leadership at the community and district level. The project has also provided time-saving farming technologies ranging from motor tricycles, trampolines, knapsacks, and planters to the groups, which has intensified and promoted their businesses. And this has reduced women's workload at the community level, making farming easier and more manageable. And in Senegal, much of the focus has been on vegetable gardening, which has improved family nutrition and incomes as well. Next slide, please. And just like in all projects and in all interventions, we have definitely faced a few challenges here and there. A major challenge being a low level of education that poses a challenge to some women, and that this hinders them from participating in many significant areas that they might have interest in. And how do we try to circumvent around this particular challenge? We have tried to basically translate our training materials to the local languages in order to reach at least as many women as possible. And this has quite an impact on the ability for them to be able to acquire the knowledge about the project and many ways which they can take advantage of this intervention. Gender inequality, always an issue. Hope one day we can talk about this as history. The laws, cultures, and religion and politics built upon a patriarchal foundation in most of the 4R communities where we work with, and women must work their way up, extra hard while facing a lot of challenges and stigma and discrimination. That has been a big challenge. And although the laws and policies have, there's been an attempt to create a favorable business environment for everyone, the actual changes have not yet been implemented. And if so, there's always still challenges and barriers preventing group members from full participation in leadership positions. And then balancing responsibility is another big issue. Gender roles that belabor women allow them lesser time to engage in other important self-development activities. And the families and communities expect women to be mothers, wives, while at the same time still expected to show 100% commitment in their businesses. It becomes particularly more difficult for those who lack social support because they must bear all these, burdens by themselves. So that prevents them a lot from engaging in some of these activities. And then the issue of limited knowledge, women access to key information and emerging knowledge is still very limited, but we are trying to see ways on how we can reach as many of them as possible. Next slide, please. Along the way, we have learned quite a number of lessons. We have seen and witnessed that the Rural Commercial Women Group structure is an efficient platform that is used to efficiently provide women-centered interventions within the communities. And through these groups, women become more active and free to talk about issues that limit their effectiveness and how these issues can be addressed as well. And the groups serve as a vehicle for the project to mobilize women for action and advocate for equality. And also the group structure can easily and efficiently be adopted by any organization for women-focused interventions. Continuous engagement with the groups alongside our gender model families component of the project has also provided a deeper understanding within the communities on how husbands and wives or men and women can equitably complement one another. We have also witnessed increased women representation in leadership positions. Women leaders in cooperatives and circles has also improved as a result of the project. And as Nikita mentioned, we are in the last 2 years of the project and hope to make a much greater impact. We are very grateful for the funding from Global Affairs Canada. We have in the past also collaborated a lot with the IFAD, and we have managed and been able to successfully implement a number of projects with IFAD as well. And we look forward for any further collaborations as well. And we want to thank our partner, our main partner, Fertilizer Canada also, and local partners as well. We have worked together very well and we continue to collaborate well. And I think we will see a big impact by the time we are finishing this project. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, Jane, thank you very much. And again, a reminder for everyone to be jotting down your questions and inserting them into the chat box here as we go forward with our webinar programs. I'm sure you'll all have many questions and will spark a rich dialogue. Okay, I'm not sure that Tefera Befakadu is able to join. I think he's had some technical difficulties. Tefera with the Bank of Ethiopia, are you able to be on? And apparently he is not. Is there another representative from the Bank of Ethiopia that may want to intervene and offer a few comments as we work to connect to Farah?
Yeah, this is CEO from IFAD country program. He is trying to reconnect actually. He used the wrong link. Now he's with advice from our colleagues. He's connecting now, reconnecting actually.
Okay, so perhaps what we could do now is just segue and hope that Tefera will be able to join, but segue into our discussion, our question and answer session here. And we'll have time perhaps at the end. And this is the most important part of the webinar anyway, the dialogue that we'll have. So, so thank you to our presenters so far for those insights, those experiences that you've had. And I'd like to begin by posing the first question to Jane. Jane, you talked about the challenges that you need to overcome to further build out and expand the program. And one of them was gender inequality. And I wonder if you could share with us any of the strategies that have been particularly helpful to you in overcoming that important barrier and challenge. Jane, any lessons learned there in that area?
Thank you, Patty, for that question. One of the big lessons learned is the ability to provide learning material that is also translated, especially in the local language. That has been a big impact, breaking the barrier between the inability of these women to access information and to understand the project and what activities or opportunities they can be involved in within the project. So that has been a key element of the way we have been able to overcome the issue of education. And then in terms of gender barriers, women usually find it very hard sometimes to participate in some of these activities, of course, because of the patriarchal nature of communities where they come from. But we have an element of gender model families within the project that has helped us at least be able to, break those barriers by helping them, get deeper understanding within the community on how, men and women or husbands and wives can equitably complement one another. And we have tried to bring in the men as well, so that it's an equitable provision of services and, taking advantage of these opportunities. So the fact that we have involved the women alongside the men, that has been quite a big milestone in helping us to be able to provide the gender equality intervention directly to the women as needed by the project. Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, Jane, thank you very much. And we're still working to connect Tefera. I'm hoping he'll be able to join here momentarily. But there's another question that has come in as we work to connect him, and that has to do with experiences in improving soil health, which is certainly an important pathway to productivity, to water conservation, to carbon sequestration. And I wonder if any of our panelists that have spoken so far might address work around soil health. Clyde, is that one maybe you could take?
Sure, Ernie, I could try. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I've been around these issues for a long time in North America and now in Canada. Obviously, soil health is a much broader issue in Africa and many other parts of the world than just soil fertility, which is just having the crop nutrients in the ground that allow plants to thrive. I think there's a number of things. First of all, what proper soil fertility does, the use of fertilizer and other nutrients like manure, is it helps build the biomass. So if you have plants that are growing vigorously, they produce significant roots and stalks and leaves. And if those are allowed to be mixed back into the soil after harvest, that is a key component of building soil organic matter, and which also has the advantage of carbon sequestration. There are limits, I think, to how much fertilizer alone can improve soil organic carbon, but it's hard to build soil organic carbon without healthy, thriving, and properly fertilized crops. The other aspect on soil health that is related to what we're doing is, if there are ways that we can reduce the use of tillage, of hoeing and churning the crop, that actually prevents the destruction of soil organic matter. If you cut up the soil and chop up the roots and other plant material in the soil after harvest, you tend to release that carbon into the air. So Canada's had great success in using reduced tillage to build up soil organic carbon.
Any other comments on soil health? Because I want to go back to Tefera, who has been able to successfully join, but any other comments on soil health? Okay, and as a reminder, folks, please don't be bashful. If you have a question, insert it into the Q&A function, and we'll come back and provide answers, or at least have a conversation about your question as we see them. Okay, hopefully, Tefera, you can unmute yourself, and we'll welcome you to the program today. Tefera is the Director of External Fund and Credit Management at the Bank of Ethiopia, and he is also an Access to Finance Component Coordinator for a number of multi-million-dollar projects at the Development Bank of Ethiopia, as well as a National Program Coordinator for Rural Financial Intermediation. So Tefera, welcome. I'm so happy to see your face. They were able to finally connect, and we see your slide deck is up. So we'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you for your introduction also. With me, we are going to see the rural finance program called the Rural Financial Intermediation Program, which is implemented in Ethiopia, and currently which is found on its third phase of implementation. This program has impacted and improved livelihoods of millions of rural households in Ethiopia, as can be seen on the previous slide, please. Yeah, on such picture, it has impacted millions of rural households, like it can be seen in the picture. Please, next slide. Thank you. This program has a goal of improving livelihoods and reducing vulnerability and poverty in Ethiopia. This goal is set based on the prevailing problems, that is poverty, vulnerability of livelihoods and the people, and limited access to finance, and relatively weak rural financial institutions. So with this the program's development objective is to increase access for the rural households, so that increase access of financial services, so that they could get the financial services and engage in economic activities, improve productivity and the livelihood as well. Next slide, please. The targeted beneficiaries are rural households, and this program is a nationwide initiative, which is for 6 years duration, from 2019 to 2025. As I said earlier, it is the third phase. We are in RUFIP 3. Next slide, please. This program has 4 components. It's not only about liquidity or fund flows. It's a systemic intervention. Under component 1, the capacity building fund is channeled to the institutions, thereby clients get better served. Under component 2, the regulatory and the supervisory organs of the financial system, especially the rural finance system, get supported. Under component 3, it is about fund flow, and wherein we channel the line of credit as well as product diversification supports for the sector. And the component 4 is for enhancing the program management. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the program's theory of change tell us that these four components are well interlinked by addressing the constraints and help to improve overall the system, not only the liquidity part, but also all the enabling systems like the supervisory and the regulatory organs, so that outcomes lead to the targeted impact of the project, that is improving livelihoods. Next slide. Next, please. Yeah, as I said earlier, this program could reach more than 7 million rural households until the end of its previous two phases, OFIP 1 and 2. And the impact study by the completion of the second phase show that the majority of loan borrowed used for investment services for on-farm and non-farm activities, and with comparison to non-beneficiary of the program, it is found out that the beneficiaries, the rural household beneficiaries, have got or shown to have 18% higher income as compared to the non-beneficiaries, and also lower absolute and the food poverty as compared to non-beneficiaries. And the beneficiaries found to have better access to improved agricultural inputs. And this also shown on crop yield as compared to the non-beneficiaries. Also, the program accessed the services to larger rural women. Majority of loan recipients in MFI, about 61.4% of the recipients were women, and 44% in rural saving and credit cooperatives were women. This leads to improvement in their self-reliance, decision-making, and independence. Next slide. Yeah, the institutional arrangement is similar to the previous one, also under RUFIP 3. The external financiers, our development partners, supporters, IFAD and other co-financers negotiate with Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Finance is a representative of government. The program is having the National Steering Committee, which oversights the overall implementation and also gives strategic and policy level direction. And the Development Bank of Ethiopia, DBE, is the lead implementing agency. The project coordination and the management unit is constituted under Development Bank of Ethiopia, which I represent. And from here is that both the technical assistance for the supervisory regulatory organs and also for the training and institutional support is channeled, as well as the line of credit, the fund flows to both sectors, the microfinance sector and the RUSACCOs is channeled. With this, that the rural households get the services from grassroots financial institutions, the microfinance institution, and rural saving and the credit cooperatives. With this, we are targeted to reach about 13.5 million rural households from 7 million by 2019. This is the institutional arrangement, how we are going to reach the additional 6.5 million rural households. Next slide. Thank you. To make realize this, the total cost of financing of the program is around 303 million USD at design, which is also having a financing up during the design stage, of which external financiers as well as local resources is contributed together. The external one covers about 192.9 million, of which IFAD and the EU's fund is now realized, and the remaining are still being awaited from the local source, the Development Bank of Ethiopia contribution and the government of Ethiopia's contribution is realized, while the two are still underway. So we are on the middle of second year of the third phase implementation, and there is still a financing gap. Next slide, please. Yeah, when we look the progress of the first year of the third phase last year, about 1.146 billion ETB has been dispersed to microfinance institution and the RUSACCOs. This is about 28 million USD. From this, the program could only cover this amount, only about 25% of amount requested by the rural financial institutions. This is same under year 2, under the current year also. 18 microfinance institutions and 14 RUSACCOs, or their unions, have benefited from the line of credit. From the dispersed amount, IFAD covers about 52%, while the rest is covered from the DB's contribution and the reflow from the local sources. Next slide, please. Yeah, to conclude, the RUFIP3, the current under implementation, is the one built on the success of the previous RUFIP 1 and 2 to scale up the delivery of financial services. It is a national sector-wide investment and addresses key institutional and policy issues so that a vibrant and sustainable rural financial systems developed. And the rational and urgent need of this program is to reduce poverty and vulnerability in rural areas of the country. Last slide, please. Yeah, so far, 134 RUSACCO units have been reached through line of credit. When we say the including institutional support is above 5,000, line of credit, about 134 have been have benefited from the line of credit. 14 of them are under RUFIP 3. 25 microfinance institutions accessed with the line of credit from the program, of which 18 under got line of credit under RUFIP 3, and to see the credit supply and demand, there is a very wide gap between what is requested and what we can provide. And to conclude, to reach its target of 13.5 million rural households, additional 6.5 million in this phase, the program is expected to fill its designed financing requirement at least, and also its remaining financing gap if possible. Thank you very much.
Okay, Tefer, thank you very much. That is a very impressive set of accomplishments, and I was struck by the 18% higher income figure that you quoted. So I would invite the participants now to please type in any questions you have in the chat box, and we'll call them out as we receive them. And as you're composing your questions, I want to go back to Tefer with a question, maybe to kick us off. And that has to do with the ability of the farmers that are receiving these financing resources to be willing to share their experiences with their neighbors. I know in many parts of the country, financial data is very closely held. And because there is competition between producers, oftentimes farmers are hesitant to share the financial gains that they've made for fear that it'll come back and increase competition. So is there, Tefera, any insight or experiences that you might comment on relative to how, particularly with the smallholders and the women farmers that have received over 65% of these funds, how they're communicating with each other and talking about their financial improvements using these programs and tools?
May I come in now or respond?
Yes, we can hear you, Tefera. Your video is off, but we can hear you.
Okay. One of the peculiar nature of this financing is the average loan size under the rural financing is low. One of the method of backing these loans by rural financial institutions is by introducing the group collateral method. In that sense, the farmers come together for getting the loan, that little average loan. They have to unite socially as well to get the group collateral coverage. So mutual communication between them is mandatory so that they could get that service from surrounding grassroots financial institution. Success stories through our follow-ups, also during impact study, that could be well tracked by observation and also through interviews. They are willing, the farmers, to give this information. If I get your question right.
Okay, Tefera, thank you. So producing food, agricultural commodities, it's a complex undertaking. It requires a wide range of financial investments from the input side to the capital expense side. And I wonder if any of our panel members might comment on different issues that have arisen as you've been working to finance the sustainable production of food production here in the target area that we're working on, because there are differences between longer term investments for capital expenditures, things like crop storage and equipment versus your input costs. Would anyone, Jane perhaps, or Tefera, like to comment about any particular challenges or issues that have arisen around short-term and longer-term financing?
Maybe to comment on the challenges at grassroots level. From the supply side, there needs a support on MFIs, which is currently under establishment and expansion from the supply side, from microfinance and the RUSACCO side. And also financial literacy is a challenge in both sides. Also from the demand side also. These are the major challenges of the system.
Jane, thoughts from your side?
Yes, thank you so much, Annie. I can add on to that, as I mentioned earlier, especially the challenges we have been facing is low level of education, and also the issue of gender inequalities. You find that mostly women don't have capital, or they don't have a means to, use as collateral to join some of these interventions. And so one of the things that they have to do once they join the group is, of course, be able to guarantee each other. And often, sometimes you find there's a level of mistrust amongst, the group members, but we have tried to provide really a safe space for them to have communications and to have, entrusted collaboration so that they can be able to share with one another and be able to confidently, guarantee each other for the access of the loans. So, and that has helped at least many of them be able to access the loan facility. Another big issue is the fact that, of course, many women have less say, especially in the communities when it comes to decision-making in the family. And you find that women cannot, willingly want to involve themselves without maybe a go-ahead, or rather be, allowed by the husband. But we have also tried to work around that by introducing the gender model families component of the project that has incorporated also the men within the project, and they also have an advantage to take, or rather, something to benefit from the project. So they at least they've been able to release their women to become part of the project and benefit in many ways.
Okay, thank you, Jane. And I saw Mr. Mawera with IFAD had raised his hand. Would you like to share your thoughts relative to that point?
Thank you very much, Annie, for that question. My name is Mawera Chitima. I'm from the International Fund for Agriculture Development, and we are in collaboration with others financing the RUFIP 3 project. I think, what we have seen is that access to long-term finance is generally a problem in Ethiopia, especially. So there is a tendency for shorter-term finance. And the main reason here is really on risk, perceived risk on behalf of small-scale farmers to be able to finance long-term investments. And so the bulk of the financing is a very small part of financing for inputs. And in some cases, it's not actually at a level which is adequate for crop health. And what we're trying to do now is to find ways that we can link up financing to reduce that risk, perceived risk in some cases, so that the financiers are able to finance, one, larger amounts to the small scale farmers, and two, for longer term investments. Let me give an example here. For example, if you are going to get full benefit of your nutrients, you may need water investments. You may need equipment to be able to farm more efficiently. You may need storage facilities. And these are longer term investments which you need, which the financing is generally not available. And so we are working with the financial sector to see how do we reduce their exposure to longer term risk. And in this case, we are trying to do value chain financing. We are trying to introduce other forms of insurance. We are trying to see it from a risk perspective so that we get more and more funds to flow to the smallholder sector for longer term financing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarifying point. So we've had a question from Peter Mazzetti relative to how do you overcome the challenge of securing collateral, particularly with vulnerable producers, women? Anyone like to comment on any experiences around helping these individuals come up with the collateral that might be needed? Tefera, maybe I'd start with you with that question, if you have any thoughts for us.
Yeah, the issue of collateral is still a challenge. One of the tackling method is group collateral. The other is successive loan sizes, which is increasing over time. That is one of the area that microfinance or RUSACCOs build trust for repayment. But still, it is a challenge, which is the area needs for further intervention, like introduction of guarantees in the system.
Jane, any thoughts there relative to collateral?
One of the ways we have tried to do as a project is try to create linkages between the groups and value chain actors, and to overcome the inability of the women being able to afford, especially the inputs and technologies 100%. The project has provided financing in terms of loan funds, where the women can at least be asked to contribute like a percentage, like maybe say 40% or 30%, and then the rest is covered by the project. That has really helped a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jane and Tefera. Again, I would remind you or encourage you to put questions into the chat box, so feel free to do that. So we began the webinar today with the observation and reflection in terms of context on how the current conflict in Ukraine is having an immediate impact on the global economy, particularly the energy sector. The fertilizer costs are going up. And I wondered if any of you might have an insight or comment relative to at what point do we cross over a threshold where the fertilizer that is so needed is no longer financially able to be acquired. It's beyond the ability of the producer to secure a return. These fluctuations hopefully are only episodic and temporary in time, but they can be very, very disruptive, particularly in smallholder operations. So does any of our panel members have any thoughts relative to ways financiers might help buffer some of these shock episodes of increasing prices and how they're disrupting decisions to purchase fertilizer? Anyone like to comment there? Maybe Moera with IFAD, any thoughts on that challenging point?
No, I kind of missed you were breaking off, so I saw that you were asking what are the challenges for them to actually invest in fertilizer. Is that your general question?
Yeah, I think we're cognizant of the fact that smallholders are particularly affected when price spikes come along and disrupt what they're doing. And we don't know how long we're going to see an increase in fertilizer prices as an example, but it's an immediate challenge. So at what point do price increases force producers to abandon purchasing inputs like fertilizers? And what can we be doing to try to buffer some of those shocks?
I mean, that's a good point, that because I think the smallholder farmers are quite sensitive to price increases, because generally speaking, I think their margins are really fairly low in general. And so they are sensitive and they are quite aware of any price increase as a shock that makes them shift from using fertilizer. And this is of particular concern, especially when you start having a higher levels of adoption and then there's a price increase. You tend to lose those people who have started to use fertilizer on a regular basis. Now, to really hedge against that, I think there are a number of ways you can do it. Firstly, there has to be some form of assistance to farmers in terms of when there is a shock. We have seen that the work done in Malawi, where there was unfortunately too high a level of assistance, that makes it not very sustainable. But that level of assistance to some level is required, especially when you have shocks, like when there's a global crisis and then there's a shock. You need to support farmers to be able to continue getting the right levels of inputs. We also need to have structured ways to facilitate access to finance to be able to continue buying them. What we have seen in Ethiopia is that immediate availability and easy access to inputs makes it easier for farmers to buy, even as the prices go up, as long as it's profitable. So when farmers start looking for fertilizers, looking for inputs in far away places, and then the prices also increases, then the logistics become also a very big cost element to their production, and they tend to drop off. So the use, for example, in Ethiopia, of close proximity cooperatives, the use of close proximity input outlets in villages is a key enabler to farmers to continue using inputs. But the key is the venture should continue to be profitable, and we should assist them to realize this profit at the end of the day. Otherwise, they will not use the inputs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have a question from Ricardo Ramirez, who observes that back in the 1990s, when there were price spikes and disruptions, that the fertilizer program in Ethiopia was canceled. And he points out that there was an effort to bring back legumes and manure into farming systems. So his question is, for any of the panel members, do you see potential in shifting of some of our focus more on nitrogen fixation practices and crops? Any comments there as a potential bridge strategy as we mitigate through these price spikes? Clyde, what's your thought on that question?
Right. Well, I think it's an excellent question. I know that we would certainly like to see greater production of nitrogen fixing crops in Africa. It's an important part of the crop rotations in North America, and there's not only from the nitrogen fixing aspect of those crops, but also their high protein content from animal and human nutrition point of view. And they're also very diverse from other crops. And so the more diverse your crop rotation is, the less exposure you have to disease. So if you grow the same crop over and over again, you're more likely to have disease and pest problems. But if you can have very diverse crops such as legumes versus, let's say, cereals, you improve your disease resistance. But I think more generally, there are, I think, giving farmers the tools to use their fertilizer as efficiently as possible does mean that they're going to be able to get the best value from every dollar or equivalent that they spend on those products. And just longer term, I mean, obviously the events in Ukraine are terribly sad and devastating. But I think the whole supply chain in Africa, the more that governments and the international community to do to build the capacity of African agriculture to have better logistics to procure fertilizer and get it to farmers, and then also to make sure that farmers in Africa have access to international markets so that they can get the best prices for their crops, so that they can be in a better position to afford inputs. And right now, I think many African farmers are missing out on very high prices for major grains and oilseeds. And I think building on the African capacity is a longer term solution, but I can't underestimate how terrible things are and how deeply concerned our industry is about the events in Ukraine.
Right, thank you for that point. And it's really an important one, that there is no one single response strategy to improving resilience and building the capacity of the entire sector on the continent to be more nimble, to be more able to absorb these shocks is certainly a multi-strategy approach. So we've got time, I think, for one more question, and I'm going to direct this one to the panel members. It comes from Nelson Caramera, who observes that banks' lack of expertise in agricultural financing, coupled with loan applicants' failure to meet technical feasibility and financial viability requirements, has resulted in banks turning down the majority of agribusiness applications. That's his observation. And the question is, how can farmers overcome these challenges? Any of our panel members like to take on that question? Tefera, any insight there? Or Jane, I see your screen is up. Go ahead, Jane.
Yes. I just wanted to add that CDF, that is Cooperative Development Foundation of Canada, has worked for many years, in international development, building prosperities in communities around the world. And one of the ways we have been working is with local communities to establish and grow communities that are, community-owned cooperatives and help people achieve more prosperity and, live self-reliant lives. So we have seen that helping communities to come together, especially smallholder farmers, group, helping them and supporting them to form groups, and then they can form the village savings and loans associations. And then from that, they can easily be able to access financing or loans or even agricultural input at a much easier way compared to sometimes the hurdles they find in trying to access big loans in the banks. So that has been a very efficient way of helping the smallholder farmer to access credit without necessarily having to, go through the hurdle of making it to the bank and having to show the ability to repay the loan. So we help them to form the groups, the village savings and loans associations, the rural commercial women groups, and then they come together and be able to guarantee each other and they can access the loans easily. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Any other responses to that question?
May I come in?
Yes, Tefera, go ahead.
Yeah, on smallholder financing, from our experience, we have learned that financing at locality level is a very feasible way that portion of loan is small, as well as the expertise from the financing side is close to the activities. So when planning the repayment terms and for follow-up, it's well aligned with the cash flow seasonality of smallholder farmers. That is a good approach by financing them on through grassroots financial institutions. For the bigger commercial level financing, there is also a need to have a specialized expertise on this sector, one of the challenge by the financial institutions. In our case, for example, on our project financing wing at Development Bank of Ethiopia, we are establishing a new specialized agri-finance units, so that what requested by the investors and what the bank could provide could align well. In general, the challenge on agri-financing is one, it is weather sensitive, the cash flow, the risk level when associated with the risk, it is relatively higher as compared to other sectors. That is one of the areas that financial institutions refrain to enter into this area. But with well taught on strategic level intervention, with expertise level intervention by financial institutions, this could be tackled and addressed, and also needs to have an introduction of insurance products. It needs to be backed and go hand in hand with development of such insurance which covers such risks. That's my thought on this. Thank you.
Okay, Tefera, thank you very much. Well, it's hard to believe, but our 90-minute block of time has just flown by. here, and we're closing for resources, policy development advice, country program development management, as well as the management of resources and representation. And Sana is going to close us out today with some thoughts and reflections on financial measures for improving rural livelihoods. So Sanya, over to you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I am Sana Jatta. I am the Regional Director at Interim for Western Central Africa, or IFAD. I'm making this presentation on behalf of the Regional Director for Eastern Southern Africa, Mrs. Sarah Magu, who is unfortunately unable to join us today because she's with our President in Malawi. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of delivering the closing remarks for what has been a remarkable and insightful webinar. I believe this webinar has done what it sought to do by providing a platform for sharing experiences and lessons learned on how innovative financial measures improve rural livelihoods in Ethiopia. The experience and results that have been shared through today's discussions confirm that financial inclusion is pertinent to the transformation of rural livelihoods. Moreover, the theme of this webinar, financial measures improving rural livelihoods in Ethiopia, is particularly important as it focuses on building resilience through financial inclusion. Resilience is enshrined in IFAD's strategic objectives and a key theme for the 12th replenishment of IFAD's resources. Strengthening resilience is also in line with SDG 1.5, which calls for countries to build the resilience of the poor and those in vulnerable situations and reduce their exposure and vulnerability to climate-related extreme events and other economic, social, and environmental shocks and disasters. At the beginning of the webinar, our distinguished panelists highlighted various sub-themes, especially access to finance against a backdrop of financial inclusion. Permit me at this point to share my thoughts on how access to finance can improve the livelihoods of smallholders. One of the key ingredients of rural development is access to financial services because it increases incomes through productive investment. It helps create employment opportunities. It facilitates investments in health and education and reduces the vulnerability of the poor by helping them to smooth their income patterns over time. As we see in the case of Ethiopia, RUFIP has played a pivotal role in supporting the expansion and outreach of MFIs and RUSACCOs. The microfinance institutions grew from a handful at the start of RUFIP to 42 in 2021, of which 38 have accessed debt finance and capacity development offered by RUFIP. Likewise, during the same period, the number of RUSACCOs increased from 134 to over 17,000. RUFIP enabled clients to open more than 20 million savings accounts and 5.3 million loan accounts. While access to finance is important, it's also crucial to consider adequate risk management strategies. Instruments such as index insurance, which we didn't have much time to talk about here, for crops and livestock succeed in minimizing moral hazard and adverse selection, and under some circumstances can incentivize farmers to take riskier but more profitable investments. In addition, access to finance plays an important role in climate adaptation and increases the resilience of agriculture to climate change, thereby contributing to longer-term food security. Solutions regarding access to finance need to better understand the various profiles for smallholder families and the conditions and market context where they operate. This is because smallholder farmers are a heterogeneous group, differing in their resource base, choice of crops, livestock, and links to markets. Where are the key takeaways from this session for us in IFAD? The benefits of access to finance to smallholders are enormous. Growing income of farmers and agriculture SMEs through access to better technologies and commercialization. Increasing resilience, risk management capacity through climate smart production and risk diversification. And smoothing the transition of non-commercial farmers out of agriculture and facilitating the consolidation of farms, assets, and production. Access to finance must be a key priority in responding to shocks and crises such as COVID, climate change, and droughts, among others. As the pandemic continues to damage global health and the world's economies, it is crucial that we prevent it from plunging millions more people into hunger. Small-scale farmers can help us to do this if we work with them and invest in their activities. Resilient farmers are key for a resilient food system, and they are an indispensable part of a brighter post-COVID-19 world. Agriculture and rural development remain critical pathways to deliver on sustainability and poverty reduction targets. It is estimated that by 2030, with the right policies and investments, agriculture could unlock an extra $2 trillion in rural growth. Investing in rural smallholders by providing access to finance will also access to the necessary agricultural inputs, enable them to adopt innovative farming practices to improve the resilience of food systems. On this note, I would end here and thank all those who have made today possible, in particular to the IFAD team, first, second to the Solutions from the Land, third, Global Affairs Canada, fourth, Fertilizer Canada, fifth, CDF Canada, and the Development Bank of Ethiopia. Let us all continue to work together to break the gap in access to finance for all and keep the dialogue going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia, so much for that closing presentation, talking about the multiple dimensions of the quest that we're on. Thank you very, very much. So today we've been talking about access to financing and how critical that is in order to really scale up the deployment of climate smart agriculture systems and practices, of which the 4 Rs are certainly an important building block. And the outcome, what we're really talking about, is the sustainable intensification of production of all types of commodities and ecosystem services, improvements in resilience, and along the way, reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and other important climate change solutions that farmers and ranchers all across the world can deliver. So I want to thank all of our panel members today for the time you took to prepare for this webinar, for your presentations, your insight. And the good news is that this session is being recorded and we're going to be sharing it widely across the world. So your experiences and insight can be absorbed and processed by others. At this point, we are at the close of our webinar, but I would ask that all of our panel members please turn your cameras on because we're going to take a picture of all of us in this virtual world that we're now continuing to work under. You'll have a chance to reflect back and see the faces behind today's webinar. So don't be bashful. If you haven't turned your camera on, you'd like to participate, please do. Okay. Well, everyone, thank you again so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. This is the second in a series of 4 webinars that we're going to be holding, talking about the multiple partnerships and dimensions of the 4R Solutions program. So we thank you for your focused expertise and input on financial measures, and we'll look forward to our next webinar. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cha.